Suspense is like a dance. It's a quick succession of movement amidst calamity. It can also be a painstakingly slow crawl that just patiently sits in your gut. It's an uneasy journey from point A to point B. It's not knowing where to go at all. And almost every single masterpiece in film has even the slightest bit of tension. Tension is certainly needed to generate conflict, and conflict is needed to further a story. This can be through plot, or hell, even through feeling alone. I love this stuff, man. As a matter of fact, I often find myself liking the smaller or more intense scenes over, say, the huge, cool moneymaker action scenes in a film, anime, or a TV show. Now, there's nothing wrong with being more interested in the cool, bombastic stuff, you know? Like what you like. But this quote hits home hard for me. There's no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it. Those words were spoken by the master of suspense himself, Alfred Hitchcock. And see, the bang without proper anticipation or build is essentially just a jump scare. Some are fun, yes, but ultimately make rewatches a bit of a bore and further prove how shallow those jump scares really are. Today on Featuring Des, you'll be walked and talked through a few scenes by yours truly. Here I'll be giving ideas as to why a certain scene works or what I enjoy about it suspense-wise. Let's get it. So in this scene, we have a classic case of what I personally like to call the more you know, the more the intensity will grow. What that translates to is knowing more than the characters on screen is sometimes all too stressful, which in turn makes for some great cinema. Let me put you on game real quick. Let's start with a more popular flick, shall we? So the film Inglorious Bastards opens with the man, Hans Landa, who I believe to be one of cinema's greatest villains, on a hunt for anyone who is an adherent of Judaism. While conducting his search, he discovers a group of people who have been willfully harboring a small Jewish family underneath their home, so Hans has the family below executed. But one member of the family escapes. Later in the flick, and after some considerable amount of time has passed, our girl finds herself in less than desirable company. She's really only out there out of formality. Now, as the dinner she attends is about to reach its end, guess who shows up? Yep, you guessed it. Hans Scumbag Landa. We, the audience, know whom this man is. Our main lady knows who this man is. But the real question is, does Hans know or remember who she is? There were no signs prior in this scene that should have tipped us off into thinking that he recognized her. But as the dinner party wraps up, this happens. And just like that, with one simple hand placement on her shoulder, instant fear, my boys, instant fear. Now, what follows is the typical delightful conversations that don't always feel so delightful. Know what I'm saying? This here is probably Tarantino at his most restrained, choosing to put an emphasis on words, slight movements, subtlety rather than flair, which is why the relief on our girl's face versus the worrisome nature at the beginning of their conversation is more powerful than even the most grandest of eye-catching moments in this film. The suspense was truly real here. And another scene that flows in a similar vein is the car showdown near the end of the film. The devil all the time. Now, in the previous sentence, I mentioned how these two scenes flow in a similar vein. That vein being subtlety. Subtlety like quick movements of the eye or slight gestures all aid in building to what we said earlier, the bang. With that said, the big similarity here though is us, the audience, knowing more. Check it out. Arvin, our lead protag, is on the run after committing an act that could mean the end for him if he's caught. So, while struggling to get as far away as possible, struggling being the key word here, his luck changes. He assumes for the better, but we, the viewers, know this is not the case. See, he gets picked up by an innocent enough looking couple. However, the couple who picks him up happen to be somewhat infamous serial killers who lure in young men with a set routine. We, the audience, are aware of this fact, which only adds stress to the already tense scene. Although, Arvin, with his spidey senses already on high alert from the previous run-in, immediately took note of Carl's gun as the couple pulled over to do what they do best. Through deduction and nerves alone, Arvin realized something was about to happen. We see it in his face that his role in whatever exchange was about to take place wasn't going to be a passive one or a reactionary one, but rather a premeditated one that would help ensure his safety. This film is one of those flicks that some people seem torn on. Some loved it, and some were just meh on it, you know? I happen to have liked it a lot. Scenes like this were part of my enjoyment with it. Now, what I find fascinating about this particular scene is the murderous couple see Arvin as just a sweet kid, but little do they know, he too is a murderer. Much like how the young man thought the couple were selfless, kind individuals. It's just an interesting dynamic and fun to think about. It adds layers to this scene, and y'all, I just love the art of visual storytelling, and this scene was a solid one. I like both the previous and this scene, but the real key difference here is the so-called bang in both films differ. While The Devil All the Time moves slowly until finally exploding in a showdown between murderers, Inglorious Bastards opts for an explosion with emotion. This final bit I want to talk about is from probably my favorite anime of all time, Monster. This interaction has two players, one, Johann Liebert, and two, Detective Richard. For me, this last show was one of the first things that came to mind when I thought about this quote. And it goes hand in hand with what I was saying earlier about how it's about the anticipation, not the bomb itself. So here's the setup. Up until this point, Richard was seen as a disgraced cop turned private investigator who has been fighting hard to win back the trust of his now distant wife so he can finally see his daughter again. On her end, I get it. It's gotta be a little damaging to know your spouse handled a loaded gun and killed a teenage boy, all while under the influence. But since then, Rich has given up on alcohol, been taking on more cases, and seeing a counselor. He's definitely been taking the appropriate steps to show he's not that guy anymore. Naoki Urasawa truly does a good job of making you, the viewer, develop feelings for this down on his luck dad, only to rip that away from you. And what I mean by that is, well, right as our dear old dad detective finally won back his family, Johann Liebert, one of the most well-constructed and terrifying antagonists in fiction, makes an entrance. But before we get into the good stuff, let's talk about the build-up. Johann, the GOAT, lures Rich in by pretending to be doing research on the topic of the now deceased young lad that Richard now painfully looks back on. While at the bar, he notices Richard is getting a little defensive with how he purposely frames his questions towards the PI. It's then our young antagonist realizes he's got old Richie boy right where he wants him, emotionally unbalanced and engaged. So he decides to take the bottle and head out for a walk to continue his questioning of PI Rich. This next shot is when everything changes. This part here shows the two walking under a bridge, but it's just so much more than that. Richard walking under that bridge is him crossing a visual line, a line he can't come back from. See, from that point on, everything changes. The music, the way Johann speaks, his tone, how unapologetically against Richard he is. The whole damn mood changes, bruh. Everything shifts. Johan not only effectively scared the hell out of me, but while doing so, he shared some extra information that was not provided at the beginning of this tale. It turns out our Richie boy wasn't drunk at all when he murdered that kid. In fact, he was quite sober, calm, and in cold blood. He didn't drink till after he committed homicide. So Urasawa made me start to like a broken man, then scare me while ultimately destroying any trust I had in that broken man. To cap it off, Johan, after exposing Richard for all his lies, notices the ex-alcoholic is speechless and full of dread all over again. So, what does Johan do? He offers him a drink.
Well, Richard, how about a drink?
Then, right before we get to see what happens next in this hard-hitting moment, it cuts. If you had been watching this show from the jump, you knew from the moment this man revealed himself in this arc, we all knew he was going to do something wild. We were all anticipating it. And right before we get to see what actually happened to Richard after Johan offers the man a drink, it cuts away. Now, not only is this debatably more effective, but by having a cut right as the bottle of liquor appears, it has you, the viewer, imagining all kinds of things and asking more questions than you would have otherwise. Whew. All right, everyone. That's all I got for today. But before I head out, what's a scene from or a moment from TV or a show or a film that kind of goes with what I spoke with today? I look forward to reading those comments down below. And y'all, thanks for letting me chat your ears off today. This is Dez from Featuring Dez, signing out. And remember, suspense is king.